I just forgot to. I didn't get any of those nice words on record, so it never happened. Thank you, and
Do
you
not
are
ask
all
me to
free.
say it again.
You're all free to visit in Columbus.
Yes,
Please.
I'll be coming to visit
Open
you.
invitation.
And I expect
Can't
to have
wait.
their transportation system up and running in no time.
Oh boy.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Ray, ANC 1A09. So I'm part of the Parkview contingent. Thank you.
Jason Clark, 1A12. I'm the southwest corner of our ANC, over by between 16th and 13th. Gerard is the bottom. Thank you.
And then let's move into community members. I'm sorry if it's Ellie or Eli.
Hi, it's Eli. Yeah, Eli Wood, just a community member interested in various transportation projects that are going on right now.
Thanks for being here. And just so we get a sense, is anyone on here your commissioner, or what part of the neighborhood?
Rashida is our commissioner.
Okay, thanks for being here.
We're on
Andrew?
Kenyon Street.
Oh, great, thank you. And Andrew, do you want to give a quick introduction, and then we'll move to Ellen Jones and Springworth?
Yes, my name is Andrew Rivas. I'm the policy advisor and advocacy manager for the Archdiocese of Washington and representing Sacred Heart Parish.
Thanks for being here. And Ellen Jones and Springworth.
Yes, good evening. I'm Ellen Jones. I am the Chief Project Delivery Officer for DDOT.
And
Thanks for being here.
I'm Springworth. I have been working on the 16th Street Northwest Bus Lanes project.
Thank you, Spring.
Commissioner, sorry, do you know
yes.
if Many is joining us? Did we get any feed or response from him? I know
I never received confirmation, unfortunately, if he was going to be able to attend. I know sometimes he is also covering 1D.
Okay.
So we, I guess, Commissioner Miller, do you want to kick it off? Because this is sorry to throw you into the middle of this.
No, that's fine. And I do apologize. I came straight from dinner to here, so I haven't had a chance to pull up everything. But I will say we, as Ms. Worth, as you know, and Ms. Jones, I think this is the first time that I've had a chance to meet with you. Our commission, as well as Sacred Heart Church, has had a concern about the changes made in 2018, which rerouted traffic off of 16th Street onto Pine Street, Sacred Heart Way, in order to go west on Park Road. This was not part of the original plans or design that our community was presented with. And so for the last 3 years, we've really been in opposition, and we haven't really found a way to make that work. I would certainly, let Mr. Rivas speak more for the church, but I think we're all aligned in not accepting the redirection and rerouting of, while DDOT keeps saying 40 to 60 cars per hour, when you have a high density, high pedestrian space, one that's used by the church, by the parish, by a number of high need crisis populations, those 40 to 60 cars per hour is significant. So as we've been going back and forth, it doesn't seem that we've come to a resolution. And in a last meeting that we had, we sort of had this aha moment where we realized that the reversible lanes, which, and Commissioner Barczyk, correct me if I'm wrong, begin at Harvard.
Irving, right? Spring.
Oh,
I
they're
would,
in
I would defer to Spring.
Yeah, sorry. That pushing those back to Monroe Street would allow us to maintain that dedicated left-hand turn lane, which really is what we need to see happen in order to prevent traffic from redirecting onto that Pine Street Sacred Heart Way. For many of the reasons I've mentioned, we've sent many letters. I know the church has also been very active in sending a number of correspondence and examples. So I won't belabor that point because I think we all understand where we are coming from in that desire not to have traffic, cars, vehicles added onto that small little pocket street. So I think what we're asking now that we sent the letter to Director Lott, I don't know if David Meny had been able to approach anybody about this previously, but I think what we're asking now, given sort of the challenges with having that traffic on Pine Street, this seems like an easy lift and a solution to that problem, which is again moving those reversible lanes up a couple blocks to begin at Monroe Street.
So I'm going to let Spring respond to the traffic pattern you're suggesting about that, as she is much more familiar with the technical aspects of the project.
Sure. So first, the whole reason why we are recommending or removing the northbound left turn from 16th Street onto Park Road is to help meet the purpose and need of the project, the 16th Street Northwest Bus Lanes project. We are putting in curbside bus lanes on both on the northbound and southbound direction. So on the curb closest to Church on 16th Street, and then across the street close to the school will be a red bus lane, similar to what you see on H&I streets or Georgia Avenue or even 14th Street. And the whole purpose of the project is to improve the bus performance and reliability. We've gotten complaints from the ANCs and from the community for well over a decade about improving the bus travel time and speed. And when we laid out different options that we went through in 2017 and presented, and we also did Section 106 meetings, and your ANC was invited and included, along with our final meeting that we presented in 2018, the recommended design layout, our final design for the corridor included those curbside bus lanes. And in order to make it work to meet the purpose and need of the project, we moved that northbound left turn restriction to help traffic flow more freely through that intersection, and also so that buses could flow.
Okay.
I believe we spoke about this a couple of years ago. I remember because I had the hand injury at the time, Christine, and we spoke for a couple of hours. And I think you spoke with Sam Zimbabwe and Seem and I and Raka. We all sort of spoke about this back in 2018. So I know this isn't a new issue. What you brought up with changing the reversible lane and moving it further northbound was something that we looked at, and I believe was addressed that during that meeting in September 2018 about options. There were two. This was the primary option that worked with removing the turn, the northbound left turn on Park. And it's not as if vehicles can't turn on Sacred Heart Pine Street today. Vehicles can make that movement. They could take that right and then take the left onto Park Road. So this isn't something new that we're installing. It's just providing vehicles another option by restricting the left turn, northbound left turn on Park Road. Now vehicles would turn onto Pine and then onto Park if they're trying to go westbound. And in terms of how many vehicles, the 40 to 60 that you mentioned is during the peak at most, that's the number of vehicles that would be traveling down that street,
Mhm.
at the peak.
Which is also right when they're having services at the church. But you know, and all that you're saying is not, these are not new conversations. We've had them. I even remember the first conversation we had with Wasim in 2018. But I will also add that there were conversations that happened prior to the notification in July 2018 that we were not included in. In fact, the message from Sam Zimbabwe was to keep that information private while you had the discussions with a commissioner who was not in our single member district. And more importantly, those conversations were not had with the church, where we're talking thousands of parishioners that will be impacted. None of those were included. So I just want to clarify that. And I think, all that you're saying, these are the same conversations we have at every meeting. And every time we end up with the same conversation, which is, this is what DDOT has decided, separate from what the community has been asking and pushing and requesting. And as I hear you talk about removing that left-hand lane, you're telling me that the reason that I hear vehicles being prioritized. That's what I'm hearing.
Vehicles being buses too, but I'll let you finish.
The buses are not going to be impacted by maintaining that center designated signalized lane that exists now, that was recommended by previous traffic studies. So I think what we are really asking, and if we're still, if DDOT is still at a place where they just cannot work with us to maintain that signalized left-hand turn lane, then I think that's the answer to this request. But I guess the question is, why can we not maintain that signalized, dedicated left-hand turn lane? Because what we have seen prior to its implementation was a significant amount of traffic coming on to that Pine Street Sacred Heart Way. We saw injuries, we saw fatalities, we saw how devastating that was to our community. And that is why that left-hand turn lane was put in place in the first, put in place. And, our commission working with DDOT had worked to remove any indication that would direct traffic onto Sacred Heart Way, that would reroute it, making sure that since it was available, and that is, and again, you guys work with traffic, drivers are going to take the path of least resistance. And so having that left-hand turn lane right there, rather than having to cross over to Sacred Heart Way, it's that natural flow. It's what people have gotten into the habits. They're not going to go a block or 2 blocks up to Newton to go left, to turn around, to go right onto 16th, to head back west on Park Road. They're going to start rerouting onto Sacred Heart Way, which puts us back in that position we were in. I think they put that signalized light in 2010, maybe 2011, maybe even a little bit earlier. Certainly not when it was recommended, but it's been this long evolution. So, what we're asking, what we want, is to maintain that designated left-hand turn lane. And, it seems to me by shifting up that reversible lane situation that we can preserve that.
So a couple things. One is we reached out to the church. So we did extensive public outreach over from 2015 to up until now, even this past fall. And we came out to your ANC to present our final designs and made some adjustments to the curb extension turning and the crosswalk at Pine and 16th as a result of the comments that we received at that meeting. And in 2017, we reached out to the church. We actually went to the church to invite them to our Section 106 meeting. So because there's 6 historic districts along this 3-mile, 2.7-mile corridor, we're required, because we get federal funding, to do a 106, a historic preservation, to see how any of what we're doing, how it would impact any of the historic monuments along the corridor. So we reached out to the church. They were invited to all the 106 meetings when we were selecting the alternatives and speaking about this in detail. There was a meeting that we had just primarily with the ANCs in May 2018 before we rolled this out, and your ANC was invited to that to attend. Zach was on our list of invitees to attend before we rolled this out to the general public. We got that, the consensus from that group, the bids were there. And then we had the meeting in July, August 2018 to get feedback. And I know we met shortly after that in September of 2018. So in terms of public feedback and allowing the public to know, I mean, we do of course, our media release. We did pop-ups. We did a pop-up at the 16th and Irving Street bus stop, 16th and M, 16th and U. We did these. So there were opportunities. Also, all of our public meeting materials, if you weren't able to attend the meeting, we hope that you would listen to it on the beach because they were recorded and we had everything written out for people to either read the transcript or listen to it. So I just wanted to say something to the public outreach piece. As far as I hear what you're saying about why can't we have the left turn, the general purpose lane where everybody drives through, and the curbside bus lane. The problem is in an ideal world, that would be great, but because the traffic is so heavy that having just one lane for vehicles to travel in, compressing it from 2 to 1 will mean that the bus lane won't operate effectively. There will be a lot of people that will violate the bus lane as a result, and it will cause delays for both the vehicles and the buses. And that's just what our traffic analysis shows us. We had a conversation today with New York City, and they brought out the same issues that they have there, that you have to be very careful with like the traffic in order for your bus lanes, for us to meet the purpose and need of the project to improve bus performance and reliability. We have to look at what works best for the bus to be able to stay clear and for buses to be able to travel through a clear bus lane. And that is why we're removing that left turn so that we can free up the traffic and the bus can continue. There won't be any violators in the bus lane.
So it sounds like we're putting in a lot of work to expedite vehicular traffic and make it more convenient to them. And also to make sure that they don't get tickets.
And also make sure that the bus is able to.
I mean, maybe it takes 30
works.
minutes if you're driving your car through my neighborhood, but we save lives. And if it's that inconvenient for cars, maybe they'll take the bus next time.
Yeah, and that's what
I listen. If you want, at some point, you're going to have to enforce the bus lane. And if that means people get tickets for violating that, then they get tickets for violating it. What we are talking about is the safety of our residents, people who live in this neighborhood, not people coming in from Maryland, not people trying to speed through 16th Street to take their cars to get to their job just a little bit faster. We need to prioritize pedestrians, and that's not what I'm hearing. And I would also, another big question that has come up for us is why were we not given a notice of an NOI? I know that we've done it for 14th Street, we've done it for H Street. I'm curious, and especially for this very specific and strategic, which it seems that not everybody was brought into those conversations talking about this very specific and very impactful change. There was never a dedicated NOI for any of this. And I'm curious why this particular project or this particular component of that project was not obligated by that requirement.
So I'll have to look at what our NOI requirements are for our projects. But this is unlike 14th Street or Georgia Avenue or H&I that were all pilots or one-year demonstrations. This is a permanent project. We've worked on this for well over a decade, and a lot of people have asked me over the years. I've worked on this for 4.5 years, so we're going into my 5th year. And why haven't we delivered this project? Why is 16th Street taken so long? So we did notify the public when we broke ground with construction in February. It's a 12-month construction process. And then our construction updates are on our website.
Okay. Well, and I know the church had been trying to get hold of you since October. And again, Mr. Rivas, you can clarify on how long you guys have been trying to get a response. It took 5 months to get anyone to get back to them.
Well, go ahead, Spring.
No, I was going to say the project team met with the church, not just me, but our engineers and our legal team met with the church and their legal team to discuss this issue in detail. A lot of the information that you're already aware of, Christine, because we've spoken about about this intersection in length. And we did share the information with them. And we addressed the concerns that were raised by Councilmember Che's office about the extending the curb at 16th and Pine and putting in that crosswalk. I will say that you mentioned, I will say that we're on the same page. We both agree about the bus and prioritizing the bus over vehicles. And we definitely hope that there is a mode shift, that this operates really well. People will take the bus on 16th Street instead of driving vehicles. I also will say that we also agree on the safety of this area. We definitely want this to be really safe. That's why we made the adjustments at the 16th and Pine Street intersection after speaking to you all in the fall. And our safety engineer, the director of our safety team, and also Signals participated closely and making sure that what we were implementing would be for all users of the roadway. And that our safety engineer, our chief safety engineer, participated in both of those meetings with the church and was able to share that information and confirm. I'm not an engineer, but he was able to confirm and weigh in on our designs.
Spring, when was that meeting with the church? And do you remember who from the church was in that meeting?
Yeah, so Mary was in the meeting from the church. I think she's one of the legal, I can look it back up. It was in March, and I believe we met again in April, and we received a letter correspondence from both Mary and you that we responded.
Yes. Oh, I thought I thought this time frame was back in 2018 and 2000 and before that.
No, that we did contact someone from your church in 2017 for the Section 106 meeting and invited them to attend, but no one attended the meeting that we held in November 2017 at the Mount Pleasant Library right there on Lamont.
Right. And can I ask when the decision was made to move the traffic, the left turn lane over through Sacred Heart Way? Was that always part of the plan back to 2010?
No, the plan has changed over the years. This is a really complicated corridor, as Christine mentioned, with the reversible lane, all the historic areas, the really tight roadway, the length of the project, we're covering 3 miles and it changes. So we went through different alternatives. Safety has been a critical piece of the project. Part of the issue that we ran into is overhead signage through the Mount Pleasant neighborhood when the reversible lane drops, and trying to really look at a safe way for everybody to move through those intersections. So we presented the alternatives in 2017. We did the historic meetings through 2018, and then presented the final design at the 2018 public meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, because the meetings that Mary was involved with and the conversations I've been involved with, you're right, you have presented all this material. And it's just like Christine said, but we weren't in agreement, and we still are not. We're very concerned about that short little strip, because it's a major part of foot traffic for folks who come to the parish, and what the parish sees as the future in terms of how that little area is going to be used. I mean, they're thinking in terms of asking for a plaza to be created there because of the foot traffic and the need for that space. So yeah, we're not in agreement with moving the left-hand turn lane through that area because we think that that will be unsafe. And I know that we were told at one time that we can, apply for the permits to use that special area at times, but every time I've been to that parish, I mean, there's just people everywhere over there for all kinds of functions. And it is without a doubt the Hispanic cultural center for the church in Washington, D.C. So I'm new to the area. I just got here from California, but going over there has been incredibly impressive during these COVID days to see the amount of people that flow through that church now. Once everything gets going back up, we anticipate it to be even more crowded.
And just to echo Mr. Rivas, I have been in this area for almost 20 years. I live right behind the church, and this COVID time is certainly not reflective of all of the activity and regular use of that Sacred Heart Street. In fact, I was trying to figure out how I could share a photo. Now that we're getting back, now that we're in person, the church just hosted a 100-year celebration and had people dancing on Sacred Heart Way. And while I appreciate the fact that we may be able to get permits, certainly not reflective of you, Spring, or you, Miss Jones, I don't have faith that those permits are going to be easily accessible. As we know, it can be very challenging to navigate permitting, and unfortunately, this just is not, the church's needs and our community needs have not been a priority in any of these conversations. And, while I appreciate this list of outreach, we can go back and forth whether or not, we received emails or whether or not we thought that they were meaningful engagement or outreach. It's really irrelevant. We have, from the moment that we found out about this change to the design, been in absolute opposition. I know, again, Spring, you and I have been in these meetings and I have not been silent, and sometimes maybe too passionate, but it is my neighborhood. These are my friends, right? This church is part of my life. It's part of our community's life. And the impact of this on that vital space is devastating in a way that I don't know, if you aren't there, if you don't participate, if you aren't engaged, that you can truly understand. But we, as a commission, the church has been shouting, explaining that this is going to create a major impediment to this hub of activity, this cultural hub. And really, in addition to all of that, the support that they provide for some of our neediest residents. And those vulnerable populations are not going to be looking both ways before they cross the street all the times. We have a brand new giant park. I can guarantee you my kids are not going to look both ways. It doesn't matter how much you bump out. But adding extra traffic when we have worked so hard to push it away based on DDOT's own safety studies, and also based on our own experiences, I guess, and I'm done with the passion. What I want to know is, can we get to a place where we can maintain a designated signalized left-hand turn? Again, we are coming to you with what we think is a very reasonable lift, which is shifting those reversible lanes up 1 block, 2 blocks, so that we can keep that designated lanes. And I guess if there is zero way that DDOT can come up with to make this happen, then thanks for trying. I'm not sure where else we can go from this, but we're really just trying to give ideas. We're really trying to come from a place of solutions.
So while we clearly don't agree on some things, particularly the left-hand turn lane and whether or not the bus priority system would be effective with leaving that left-hand turn lane is. That's something we don't agree on. But what we do agree on is the importance of safety for the pedestrians on Pine Street. And what we will do going forward is paying close attention both to the traffic volumes that result and also the ability of pedestrians to continue to be safe in that space. If we find that that is not the case, that if the traffic volume exceeds what everyone can agree is an acceptable level of travel, then we will work to make tweaks to the project and address that, because we are very concerned about pedestrian priority, as well as the mobility needs that the community has for affordable transit. And I do feel compelled to say that the 16th Street Busway project is a direct benefit to the community. It is how folks get to work. It is how they get their kids to school, because I've ridden the 16th Street bus. I know that it is a lifeline route for the community. And we are going, as Spring has said, our purpose for this project is to improve the reliability. So parents with children waiting to get on the bus to get to school have a half decent chance of that happening on time, or getting to their work so they don't get docked pay might be a better probability than if we don't do this. So I have to disagree with you. I think it is pretty clear that there will be benefits to the community from the bus transit improvements that we're doing, while keeping in mind the importance of safety for pedestrians in the little street in front of the church, which I'm very familiar with. My daughter used to live on Park Road. So that's where we wind up tonight.
And for the record, no one is against the bus lane. We're very excited for it. And we're not asking you to cut into the bus lane. We're asking for this left lane, but I'm going to let Commissioner Love Wade take over. Thank you.
Hi. My question had to do with, once you divert the traffic off of 16th Street onto Park Road, the impact of backing up already as you cross 14th from Kenyon, which becomes Park, there's a backup at that very corner. And it takes several changes of lights to go 1 block down from 14th to 16th. It takes at least 3 changes of lights. So once you now delay that traffic and pour more traffic onto that little teeny area, how is that going to impact all of that backed up traffic? And please don't tell me it won't impact. I live on Columbia Road, and every decision you've made as far as right turns, left turns, and bus lanes have totally impacted not only the traffic, but the quality of life of everyone who lives on that strip of Columbia Road. So I have concerns because you're doing a 14th Street bus project, and you're doing the 16th Street bus project, and you're squeezing our commission and our community straight in the center. I mean, it's not making a whole lot of sense, you know, what you're doing. You're also going to end up with Kenyon Street becoming, you know, at Park Road and 14th, also a part of a bike lane route. I just don't see where you guys are cohesive, because what you're doing on 14th Street impacts what's going on Park Road, what you're doing on 16th Street impacts on what you're doing on Park Road. And when I talked to Director Lott, you guys were not talking to each other. The 14th Street project and the 16th Street project were not communicating. Now, if it's not true, he said it. So I'm not making any of this up. These decisions that you make, I love the flow of traffic. I happen to be, Ms. Worth, one of those people who was a teenager at the time that, for the sake of commuter traffic, which is what we're doing now, flow traffic, people getting to and from work, they destroyed Sherman Avenue. They used eminent domain and took out front yards on both sides of the street that made this big freeway, which now, of course, you come back and say, oh, this was a terrible idea. So you put median in the middle, which really makes no sense after all these 30, 40, 50 years. So for the expediency of commuter traffic, I don't care if it's commuting in DC or outside of DC, the impacts on thousands of people, which is what this impact of this diversion of the left turn onto Pine is going to do. It's going to impact thousands of people, not hundreds of people as the bus lane does. And I think it's just like real short-sighted not to be willing to move, especially since you said yourself that this Pine Street is a new development. I understand there were some problems with the overhead turns. Figure that out. Figure out those overhead turn signals and the lane switching. Don't put the whole community at risk. Disrupt the lifestyles of our residents. You're already taking 200 parking spaces off of from our neighborhood. Not to mention the parking spaces you took up 14th Street. So our whole community is already tensing in an uproar from the decisions that DDOT is making, and you're piling on at the very western end of our commission. We're being squeezed with traffic. At the very eastern end of our commission, we're being squeezed. So I think you're just not, I mean, we're 8 blocks, 10 max, our commission, and we're getting the brunt of all of the traffic decisions. And I want you to know that we're in an hourglass up here. And you guys are the architects of this hourglass, and every decision you make creates a worse reaction on the other end, because you haven't looked at that end, and you cannot convince me that you have coordinated your 14th Street project with your 16th Street project with the Crosstown Modal project. You're not doing it, because if you were, we wouldn't have this situation. So I'm not beating up on you. I'm beating up on the decisions that impact so negatively on our community. And the more we cry and scream, the less results we get. But on the other side of 16th Street, you lay down on your backs for them. So I don't understand. But this plan is totally unacceptable to the residents and the people who have to use that church. You need to look at the whole picture. We've been asking DDOT for a whole picture, and they can't provide it probably because they don't have it. You have bits and pieces. So I'm listening for an answer or a comment or something.
Well, I'm sorry DDOT hasn't met your expectations.
No. It goes beyond meeting my expectations. They have not met the expectations of the community. It's not me. I've lived in this community longer than you've been alive. I've lived here for 79 years. So let me just tell you, I didn't just walk into this neighborhood. I'm not a 5-year, a 10-year, 15, a 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm a 79-year, born at Freedman's Hospital, lived on 14th and Chapin most of my life until I moved to Sherman and then to Kenyon, and now over here in Columbia. So I've never left my community. So all of the decisions that have been made by the Department of Transportation over the years have impacted the quality of life, and with very little community interaction. Now I can say for DDOT, you come up with very cute, you got the best graphics and presentations in the city. Your agency outshines every other agency in the city with your beautiful presentations. But I wish it worked as well as it looked, because what looks good on paper oftentimes does not work. well for the community. So it's not my expectations, it's the expectations of the community. And I've been representing this community for almost 30 years as an ANC commissioner. So I'm not new to the party at all on all of the issues. And I've been as passionate then as I am now. I'm not new to the dance. So it's not my expectation. So I'd like you to dial it back and take it off of me and put it on the issue.
Understood.
I will say to answer some of your questions that you raised. So with the additional vehicles that'll be on Park Road, we will make some adjustments to the signals to allow more time for the vehicles to get through. I know exactly what you're talking about with the cars being backed up. I lived for 6 years at Kenyon and 14th in one of the row houses, 4 or 5 houses down on Kenyon Street. And I know completely what you mean about the cars getting backed up from 14th and
Well, actually they started 11th, but you know, who's gonna be?
well, yeah, right, yeah, exactly. I mean, I lived on Kenyon, so I totally understand what you mean. Right near Wonderland, all the way back, and it goes all the way through. But we are making some adjustment to the signals to accommodate those additional vehicles, potential vehicles. And then to answer, I think about coordination. So we are on one team, the folks that are working on the 14th Street, and me working on 16th Street, the bus project. So we are coordinating about the efforts. I do take the bus on both 14th and 16th Street regularly, even during the pandemic, and we're able to see what's going on the street and be eyes on the street. So we do work as one team, and concerns, we definitely share them with each other. We're trying our best to coordinate these efforts. We're really proud of having 5 active bus lane projects in the district. I started with district government 8 years ago and we had 0. And now we have 5, and it's exciting to see all the great work that we've been able to do as an agency to really prioritize the bus. And as a bus user, I'm really excited about that and super happy that we're doing.
Well, as a community user, I'm not excited. I'm mortified. That is one of the worst decisions. My family's used that church for years for the weddings. And when the weddings are over, people spill out onto the front across to the park. How are you going to curb that? I mean, what are you guys thinking, that traffic is more important than the quality of life of people? It is not. 16th Street has been running for 140 some years. We've had buses and trolleys and everything else going up and down 16th Street. It's always being tweaked, but every tweak is not a good tweak. And I guarantee you, if you still live there on 14th Street in Kenyon, you would not like what's getting ready to happen to our neighborhood that we've seen coming with the bike lanes that are going to also choke more traffic and take more parking spaces. So my concern always is our public, always the people. Cars, they're insulated. They're not out in the traffic. I mean, they're not out in the elements. They can put on their windshield wipers. They can turn on their air conditioner. They can turn on the heat. They can turn left or right. People, on the other hand, are out in the elements. They're standing, they're waiting, they're worried about their children. Put all that money in a park and then make it inaccessible and make it a dangerous location for children to play with the influx of all of that traffic. And you know what happens when they know they have to turn and make that light at Park Road, at Pine and Park. They're going to speed through Pine to make that left turn. Don't tell me for 1 second that that's not going to be the norm and not the exception. So when you do these things, think about not just the children, the disabled, the homeless, all of those thousands of people that get fed a week by that church, the impact on them. Where are they going to start loading and unloading all of those groceries and have those special events for families and funerals. Where are they going to do a funeral? I mean, what are you going to do? What in the world is going to happen to the community that depends on this church to thrive? It's not just a school that's open certain hours of the day. It may have evening activities. This is a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day, very active, very vibrant part of our community. And you tell me about a light and a lane to make bus traffic easier. You got to put some humanness into your decisions. It's not all X's and O's. It's people. Put little people by those X's and O's. Put heads on those O's and arms on those X's and see what you get. You get people who are impacted by these terrible, 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 terrible decisions. And I'm not going to rest until some positive action is taken to address our concerns and not just what you've offered us. Because what you've offered us is what we're saying no to. And as a community, you need to hear us. I don't care about what's happening further up 16th Street. I don't care about what's happening up in Ward 4, where they got wide streets and driveways and parks and not a lot of apartments and can accommodate they have the wider streets. They didn't come through and narrow the streets at the time they were putting in the major shopping area and took away street parking lanes and traffic lanes. You guys did that. DDOT did that. I begged them not to widen the sidewalks, to leave those streets, because I said, you're getting ready to have a major shopping up here. You need these lanes. No, they widened it so people have outdoor sidewalk cafes. I mean, so the whole picture is not a nice looking picture. Not for our community. So I'm sorry. If my expectations are too high or not being met, no, they absolutely are not being met. And my expectations is that my government will serve me and my constituents and residents and neighbors. I expect that of my government. That's what I expect.
So Spring and Ellen, so what I'm hearing, taking away from this, is that we cannot expect any changes to the plans that are moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can I make a request just so that we are all operating with the same information? Because, you know, I know, Spring, you've known me long enough. I'm not done on this. I'm going to keep pushing until, you know, until we can't push anymore, and we'll probably still keep pushing. I mean, you know, as Commissioner Love Wade has mentioned, you know, the impact of a lot of these traffic decisions impact real people. We have already seen that traffic fatalities have been up significantly over the last several years. So I don't want to contribute to increasing that number because we are ignoring the human factor in these decisions. And, you know, and Ms. Jones, I hear you about the bus. I take the 16th Street bus. My kids take the 16th bus to get to school. So none of that is lost on me or anyone else in this conversation or anyone in our community. No, you know, if we could cut, you know, have cars stop at the border and park them and take the bus in, I'd be A-okay with that. But, you know, I think what we are really trying to do is figure out, I guess, just how we make this work for our community. My question, and again, it's about information because I'm hearing a lot of, you know, the bus studies, this will be expedite. I know prior to that section 106 that the designated signalized lane was in place. It was part of the plan. And after the 106, when we could no longer do the overhead hanging lights because of the historic preservation, that's when we were introduced. Yeah. So yeah. we can save that conversation. We'll have that in private, Commissioner Love-Wade.
Yeah.
But regardless, it is what it is. But my understanding was it was because you couldn't signalize those reversible lanes. So I guess my question is, the reversible lanes, that signalized dedicated left lane was in place in the original plan, and now it's not. We're providing an option, or what we think is a reasonable option, to maintain those reversible lanes as is. I guess, do you have numbers or statistics that show that now, prior to what your original design was, that left lane just isn't going to work for that bus lane? Is it a matter of enforcement?
It's a matter of the vehicles getting signals. So both the vehicles and the buses being able to meet, to get through in a timely fashion, and not to have things queued up in the intersections behind. So
Prior to that 106, you were going to maintain it as is, right?
we were looking at all different alternatives. We didn't have, the whole purpose of the 106 was to bring in different options. So we didn't make a decision. There was no decision made. We were looking at how can we, our purpose of the project, purpose and need of the project was to improve bus performance and reliability. And let's figure out how we can do that. And that was the whole point. We had like 5 different options and we presented them. And then we got feedback from the community, and historic standards, and then we arrived on this option.
Because those 5 options, this was not included in that option, that Pine Street rerouting. But regardless, like it does no good to, like I said, I guess what I'm asking is, do you have the numbers that you use to arrive at this being the best option? Because right now we haven't seen those. And so I guess what I would just like, I think it would be useful for us to have the information you used to arrive at the decision that this is the best option.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I think that's very reasonable. So we'll need to work with our traffic engineers, because neither Spring nor I are engineers. So we'll work with Wasim and we'll get that information to you. It's probably going to be in the form of a memo, and probably fairly brief. So we can put, I think that's a very reasonable thing to ask.
Okay.
What were the factors that led to this decision?
Yeah, that would be super.
No.
My other question, I know Mr. Rivas, the church has asked for this as well. We have been quoted studies that reverse the original safety recommendation made that had led to the institution or the instituting of that designated signalized, but we haven't seen any updated traffic study. I know that was something our commission had requested back in 2018. I know the church has been asking for it. So and we're told it exists, but we haven't seen it. So what we'd really like is an updated study, not one that was done during COVID, but one that was done when this decision was made, that reflects that now it's safe when it wasn't safe in 2004. So for pedestrians, and to Commissioner Love-Wade, part of that study also discussed the congestion problem that traffic signal was initiated to alleviate.
So what I just want to be clear, I'm
Sure.
providing a summary to you. I'm not suggesting that there is one singular study that is being relied upon, but let me engineers and get a summary to you about the decision factors.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, I think being able to see how you came from or came to that decision could be helpful. I can't say that it will change our mind, but it would certainly give us an understanding.
But the one thing I would like to point, and Spring, I'm going to need your support on this, is I think it's important to understand that the 2004 study is not related to the work that has been done. It was not the origin study for the project that we're working on today. In 2004,
No. I
Nothing
never
else?
said it was. I never said it
All
was.
right, I just
No,
wanted,
not at all. What it
Okay.
was is it specifically talked about instituting that signalized left-hand turn lane and did a formal study of what the situation was prior to that left-hand lane, which
Okay.
we're now reverting back to because of this thing. But no, none of us are confusing that study with the 16th Street bus lane at all. No,
Right.
we've read it a couple times.
okay,
Yeah,
Good.
no, we don't. But and that's why I'm asking you for that separate, the separate conversation about how you arrived at those factors, because we do
Right.
realize that those are separate.
okay, good. We can get that turned around to you, I'm sure in just a couple of days.
So when does this go into effect? Sorry, the implementation of this traffic pattern?
The project construction began in February. It's scheduled for 12 months construction.
I understand that part, but when does it approach time?
Oh, and then once the construction is completed, so after the 12 months, February, March of next year.
Mhm. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Andrew, did you have anything to add?
No, I'd just be repetitive of what Christine said. The only thing I would add is to both Spring and Ms. Jones, we want very much to support the bus project. We understand that a significant number of those who access the services at the church use the bus system. So we would like very much to support this project. Yeah, we're anxious to see what sort of information you provide, and we appreciate that.
Okay. Anything else? And Tatiana, I wasn't sure if you were related to this or raising your hand about this either.
Commissioner Love. Sorry. Commissioner Lovewaite and asked my question. It was the timeline.
Okay, thank you. I don't think there's much more to add from this side. I mean, I do want to go on record again and clarify that our ANC multiple times was left out of the conversation. And, it was really disappointing when we saw our neighboring ANC in Mount Pleasant was having involved in those conversations and privately involved in those conversations. And, maybe if we were part of that conversation at that time, we wouldn't be in this place right now. But I think, we see the writing on the wall right now. So, no, but Ellen and Spring, I thank you for your time tonight to come and share, and appreciate your follow-up with Commissioner Miller as always. And I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
And I don't look at you guys as my enemy. I want you to be clear that this is not personal. This is absolutely community-based. And I love to have tea with you anytime.
Thank you.
I'm serious.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, guys. That was a real learning experience.
I don't know what else to say about that right now.
Mr. Rivas, I know that this was kind of the conversation we needed to have with DDOT to know where we stand. And I think, if you'd like, I can set us up a separate meeting to sort of go over the conversation we just had. I'm really appreciate you being here because
Well,
yeah.
I don't know how
Rivas,
much I'll remember.
Mr. Rivas, my original advice to you stands.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
that's
our
good
next
advice
step.
too.
Our
And I
next
think
step.
that's the advice. I think
Yes.
based on the response you got today, the ball is in your court to take that very sage advice from a longtime civil rights activist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the conversation we've been having as well. And, you know, I did speak with Miss Rhodes again, just to sort of, you know, let her know about this conversation, because at the time we hadn't heard back from DDOT, so we weren't quite sure
Right.
if we were. But Commissioner Robarczyk, I know that he and I phoned, and we will get a meeting with Councilmember Che again, because I know that you guys had met with her as well and had the conversation. But you know, I just, you know, traffic fatalities are up 80% this year, and you know, I'm hearing from many communities that DDOT goes against its own safety recommendations, and it's not until we have a fatality that we actually see a response. And I don't want us to get there. And, you know, I will continue to say that. And I hope we don't end up in that situation, but we are certainly prepared for a response when we do. But the goal is not to be there.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
I mean-
So if I hadn't answered yes, please let's get together and discuss this with us privately.
Yes, no, and I will. I'll set that meeting up for the next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you very much.
Okay, so after that disappointing conversation, we can move on to another disappointing.
Is it too early for my beer?
Oh, like, it's never too early.
And I
Thanks,
thought
you guys.
were
I'm going to
saying
sign off
tea.
then.
I was like, how about a beer?
Okay, thank you.
Andrew.
Bye.
So, Zach, I know you have an agenda, but
I put in.
can I ask you if any, while we were talking about DDOT, if any follow-up was made in regards to the buses making a right turn off of Irving onto 14th that cannot access the dedicated bus lane that drives in the one traffic lane all the way down to Euclid, because they're too lazy to pull over and in and out and in and out. So they're hogging 2 lanes
They moved it. Have you been by?
up on 14th?
Yeah, at 14th and Irving, they moved those flex posts over further so that now a bus can make that turn.
Let's make it very clear. They
still can't.
didn't move it. The buses hitting it repeatedly popped it out of the ground. It was in the middle of the traffic lane, and we literally picked it up out of the street. And we're like, this is not working.
No, Michael.
We also last month in the circulator letter supporting the circulator, that included mention of that again. They're proposing moving the bus stop back a bit so the bus can also make the turn to use the lane, but it won't work if there is a loading vehicle sitting there.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem. Is that they also bypass it if someone's in it.
Yeah.
They've only seen one bus successfully make that turn before it was moved. I think a circulator bus. But yeah, I mean, there's buses go in and out because they can't go straight down it because of cars parked. You know, mail delivery vehicles too. So it's just, I don't know how we're going to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the concern I have on this other terrible issue, which, you know, is the bike lane on Kenyon Street. We have postal service. What are they supposed to do? Where are they going to put those trucks? I saw 3 UPS delivery trucks on Kenyon Street as I was heading home today. I mean, and that Metro Access bus stops all the time. And where are they going to pull over? So I'm just saying, as we look at these decisions that are being made, pulling over into that bus lane is the only place they have to pull over, and it's illegal. And we had that same discussion with the taxi commission yesterday on on what are the drivers supposed to do. There's a fare in the middle of the block hailing them, but there's nowhere for them to pull over without the potential rider crossing a bike and a bus lane to get into a car that's stopping traffic behind it. It is such a disaster.
So these are all things that you all get to address with DDOT when they want to come back to the ANC either in July or September with data from what they've recorded on 14th Street. So I had been asking for months for an update. Cynthia Tercios wrote an email saying, this is all based off of COVID data, but there's a reduction in fatalities and accidents on 14th Street, which we know, which is district wide because of COVID. We know.
Yeah, nobody's been out there.
Yeah. But also the moral of the story is they have not seen an
I
increase in bus speeds along.
know, and I told them that.
No.
I told them that would not happen because the traffic is so backed up from the dumb decisions they made earlier on.
And the buses can't use it because they're blocked most of the time. They said they made a change, I believe, northbound, and they expect to see but we need to be real. We see what happens every day, and Jason sees it every day too, and you see it every day.
I see it every day. We see it every day.
The CVS is a clear problem between both the CVS traffic and those hospital shuttles. You're not getting.
And they park right on 14th now because it's easier for them because there's no way to park where they're supposed to park.
Yeah.
Right. They took all the parking.
Well, the parking was there for the loading, right, for the buses.
Yeah,
but
they took all the loading zones away. So what are businesses supposed to do? Yep. There are no alleys and no rear accesses to most of these places.
And you can refer back to the letter that we wrote them in 2018 when this was being proposed, that was the number one thing. We said loading, curbside access, you have to figure out, and
it never did.
So that's just a heads up that DDOT wants to come provide an update. And that will either be in July, late July. I assume that will get pushed back to September now because of our meeting schedule too. So
is that just an update? It's not, I mean, we've seen what happens when they solicit our information. So.
Well, at least they're including us this time, and I really.
I mean, what's the difference?
Well,
except we waste time.
Yeah.
To be honest, like how many hours did we spend telling them all of this information about 14th Street, only to have it ignored and only to end up in this situation? We're like, I don't like to tell you I told you so. It's not fun.
No, but
I'd like to be wrong.
Well, you can't be wrong when you're right. You can't make right wrong, and you can't make wrong right.
That was my last pre-COVID meeting. Was I still have the roll at home in my dresser? So
it's huge.
The next person.
I do want to say I still think the changes that they've made in front of DCUSA and in front of the other side of the street, that those have been beneficial.
I'll give you that. Except they still double park and nobody enforces that.
Well, there's been, and that's what they're saying is enforcement's restarted June 1st. So we'll see. Okay. But I think there are definite parts of it that they should keep. But there are like also the medium being gone, but there are definite parts of it that they have to revisit. So I really do appreciate everyone's attention to when they're ready to come provide updates to give feedback.
I'm going to try to be less vocal. You may have to muzzle me for that to happen.
Dottie, we've already looked. They don't make them that big.
So I guess we have to stay virtual, Dottie, then, because in person we can't keep quiet. We can't mute you if we're in person, so we have to keep virtual.
Oh my goodness.
Heavens.
So that's coming up. Christine, was there anything with the DC USA parking garage?
Oh my God.
I read through the RFA today briefly, and just so everyone knows, there is literally one paragraph in the entire RFA that says DGS shall designate specific occasions when a church or other community events can use the parking garage for parking. And that's, in terms of how we've been asking for community use, that's the only clause.
Right. But it didn't give any of the other. And again, I do want to say this because I think it's relevant to what Commissioner Love Wade brought up with the parking, removing 200 spots. What I predict is going to happen very quickly after DDOT implements the Pine Street, removes that left-hand turn lane, traffic starts backing up on Park, they're going to get rid of the parking on a long Park Road. And so
Yeah. That's their solution.
And that's gonna be
make things worse. Here's how we fix it. Let's make it worse. Let's take parking.
So
we can bring the bike lane down, which is probably the plan.
So I bring that up because that while there isn't a lot of parking there, what we really struggle with, it's what I brought up when we had the 14th Street conversation, and I'll bring it up now. We have a lot of housing that serves low-income residents who cannot afford the $200 or $175 a month parking space, who have caretakers that need to use that on-street parking. So, one of the things that we had specifically asked for in the concessions for the DC USA parking was, okay, you're getting rid of 200 parking spaces in our committee. Now give us some in the form of subsidized parking opportunities for residents, for our seniors, for residents who are below an AMI, however they want to do it. But we need to counterbalance that loss of parking, especially the parking that serves our residents who cannot afford alternatives.
Well, I think they think that we don't need to go anywhere. Stay your butt home. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't have any money to spend anyhow. So stay home, eat food, and stay home. And don't make any noise because you're not relevant.
Well,
I mean, it's just to the point, like I had to be very abrupt with them. Government, I expect things from my government. She said the wrong thing to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I knew.
She put me on a whole different, I was nice, but she put me in an aggressive mode by saying, well, I'm sorry, I don't meet your expectation. Who the hell you think you're talking to? You are not meeting the community's expectations. You're not meeting the citizens' expectations. Don't put me in it. I'm the voice, but I'm not it.
Well, and I think that's part of the challenge, right? When decisions are made in one silo, the implications that it has on our residents are ignored. And so for me, and I think we all have had this conversation in the past, DC USA, which our city spent a ton of money. Sorry, I'm in a meeting, so I won't say the expletive. But we spent a ton of money, and we deserve some benefits for that initial investment. And that needs to come in the form of benefiting our residents that are going to be most affected by the scarcity of parking opportunities. And those are not, and those, as we know, are our seniors, our low income. We have a lot of, the church, we have a lot of residents that can really benefit from opportunities that parking structure can provide. And as we know, it's never at capacity, and we're doing a fixed fee. So they're not even, their revenue is not even
impacted. Right.
So it's ludicrous that we wouldn't set aside a certain percentage of parking.
They're going to get paid regardless of the number of cars on the lot.
They've got a fixed fee, and the city pays all the accompanying. It's a gross deal.
And if you look through, there's going to be options for this to be extended over and over and over the next.
And that's what they do. They do it as an emergency extension. That's what because they cannot have it go without management. And so what they do is they keep I'm going to let Tatiana comment, and then I could go, I could go on forever on this. And I'm happy to answer any more questions because it's not a good RFP. It wasn't good in the first place. The city doesn't negotiate good deals,
I
period.
know.
So sorry, Tatiana, I'm gonna let you speak.
That's okay. So as a resident, as a district resident, so due to my profession, I work a lot with different ANCs. I just moved to the ANC 1A district. And I like to believe that I'm vocal and try to participate as much as I possibly can with my community and my local ANCs. So you guys will be seeing and hearing a lot from me moving forward. But I guess my question to the commissioners, it has been my experience professionally and as a resident. I lived in DuPont and Colorama at different points of my stay in DC. It has been my experience that different ANC commissions have different powers, right? So I had a comment in the last ANC meeting with the chair, which I was shocked when his response was that DDOT does whatever they want regardless of what this ANC's opinion is, because that has not been my experience with other ANCs. So my experience, and even professionally, like I am a civil engineer, I can't get a project through certain ANCs if the pushback is strong enough. Like I just can't. And I work directly with DDOT, and I know everybody we're meeting with, all the PMs, all the names that I see in the agendas. I know who these people are. I work with them. I understand the studies they make. I understand their responsibilities for outreach. I'm not shocked that they met with Mount Pleasant. I am a little upset that they left you guys out of that conversation. But I guess having said all of that, in my end, not as a commissioner, as a resident, I want to understand, and I want recommendations from the commissioners as what residents can do on our end to make sure that DDOT is accountable. Because I agree with all of you, as residents, this is going to be terrible for the actual population. I get we all need more bike lanes, we all need more bus lanes, we need to move people, we need to move mass people. However, the day-to-day for the ANC 1A residents is going to be catastrophic. And I say that as a person who has a dad that just turned disabled, living in this area that has to deal with this on a regular basis. And people don't understand the struggles, but it's bad, it's complicated, and it's difficult. And I can care about people trying to get from point A and point B in a bus or in a bike as much as possible. But at the end of the day, as a taxpayer resident of the area, I'd like to be able to safely get out of my car and get my dad in a wheelchair to get into the house. And I know I'm just one person, but I am still a person that's going to be impacted by these changes. So I want to understand, and I need suggestions from the commissioners as a whole, as what residents can do, how we can basically take our parts to the district, be it the council member, be it DDOT, be it whoever it may be. What can we do to actually get our voices heard, which is beyond joining these committee meetings and the actual ANC monthly meetings? That's it.
My suggestion is always to write your mayor, your chairman of the council, the Ward 1 council member, the chairman of the transportation committee, Councilmember Shea, and anybody else, of course, DDOT director, and anybody else that you think would listen to you. My position is always to call 917 on your side.
Yeah.
Nobody listens, but they will get your voice heard. If enough people call them and they smell a story, they'll be out there with cameras and residents galore. And that was my recommendation for the people on 16th Street in Pine. That's the only thing that's gonna stop that avalanche.
Yeah, I'll just add, this has been an ongoing conversation as well, and I too am very disappointed. We have been extremely vocal in our opposition, but I think sort of as you've identified the different communities, I do know Mount Pleasant, when when the original plans came out and they were getting rid of a bus stop, Mount Pleasant's residents got together, they rose up, they spoke out, and it was a very large mobilized group. And I think, I don't think that's reflective that they care more. And unfortunately, I hear that sentiment echoed a lot. It's not that our community doesn't care, it's the fact that our community has a lot of competing demands and priorities on their time because of the nature of the demographics and needs. But I will say, and this is the conversation the church and I were having sort of as Mr. Rivas, we do realize that our next step is going to have to be in the streets. And we do hope that you'll show up, because we've tried everything. And to Dottie, to Commissioner Love Wade's point, it's just, we've tried to work through the system as much as we can. And fortunately now we have a very angry, mobilized parish, and we're going to be leveraging that. They've started a petition. They have over 3,000.
Over 3,000.
3,000. But again, these are not, only about half of them are online. And the reason for that is we have a lot of parishioners who are not native, who are not English speakers, who don't have access to the internet, who don't use it, who don't have the luxury of time that we, those of us sitting here tonight have, right? So the church has and will, they're ready to come, and they're ready to do that next step. And it will be our community, hopefully standing side by side with them. We'd like to evolve our protests so that they're nice and gentle at first, but we want to be listened to as well. And we're tired of not being listened to. And there have been a lot of conversations along, whether, why this church, and would it have happened
right somewhere else? Absolutely.
Somewhere else. And I think we know the answer to that. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think a different demographic would have gotten different results.
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference between the treatment that east of 16th Street gets, as opposed to the reaction west of 16th Street gets.
Yeah, but it's not an excuse, and we're not going to accept.
No, I'm not accepting.
We don't take excuses here, and so
right. But that is what happens. That's the reality.
Yeah, so we're going to be in the streets. I hope you'll join us, and getting the word out, because I think the other thing too is a lot of the residents that are impacted this are not on social media. They're not on Twitter. They're not on these big. I call it shaming, because that's how I have had to use it myself. Like, I don't want to have to shame an agency to get them to do what I want, but that's really seems to be how they react, and that's how council members respond. The days of a nice handwritten letter just doesn't have the same impact as all these social media outlets. And that's where I think people who do have that skill set and do have that access would be really helpful.
So my comment to the group, of course, is one, I just want to make sure it's clear to the small number of community members. We were never against the 16th Street bus lanes. So it's always going to happen. Right now, we're only really talking about one slip lane that we think is ridiculous and, quite frankly, should have never existed in the first place. So let's be clear about that. We were very positive on the 16th Street bus lanes. We're very positive on a lot of these programs. We just don't like the way DDOT typically implements them. There's often something they're overlooking and that they're not then willing to hear us on. So I do want to point out, as Tatiana had asked, you can't ignore the fact that we have these large overall missions. You've got Move DC, you've got the crosstown circulator, the crosstown projects. They go through a very long, at some point here, we might even talk about the mobility study that was just done. You have to participate in those because they set They set the stage for what's going to happen. You know, I know, Tatiana, you're very interested in the Kenyon Street bike lane project. Well, that, as you know, that bike lane project started as something that happened back in 14, 15, and 16. So, you know, these are long arcs that we've been paying attention to for a long time. And you know, of the people that Commissioner Lovewade mentioned, the mayor, the transportation head of the transportation group, Councilmember Che, our own council member, they are very supportive of those overarching projects.
Right.
To see them move forward. So, you know, the community needs to understand that you're more likely to get something by talking about the implementation than we are to necessarily say, we don't want any of these things to happen. So that's just my little add-on.
So I understand that. And on my personal, as again, I'm a civil engineer. I get it. I'm not against any of these projects, and I understand the need for the projects in the city. I am shocked that as long as these project has been discussed and as long as these studies have been implemented, that so many like basic human needs have been ignored in the study themselves. Because to me, it's mind-boggling that you're trying to implement, and I'll use the Kenyon Street project because again, I'm very much involved in what that project is going to do to the Kenyon Street, to the actual resident in the Kenyon Street. But if you are going to do a protected two-way bike lane on a residential project, residential lane, basically you're saying, if you want or need a ADA parking lane and you live on the street, you have to move. That's basically what the design is saying. There's no way around it. If you look, you can look at it 20 different ways. There's no way around it. And the fact that that has not come up, or if it did come up, they haven't come up with a solution for it, boggles my mind as a professional and as a resident. It just doesn't make sense to me. So as much as these projects have been in the talks for a really long time, there's holes, there's issues that I don't think DDOT is addressing. And I'm not saying X all projects. We need these projects, we need them in the city. I'm just saying the way they're doing it and the way the design is now is lacking, is lazy.
So one of the concerns that I have oftentimes with DDOT is the fact that they don't update their studies. They don't go back and reassess the changing demographics. They don't go back and reassess the increase in population. They don't go back and assess the development trends in those neighborhoods. I mean, I'm looking at Pepco and the big hole in the ground that they just dug up for a project that they've had in the works for over a decade, trying to get all of the permits and soil samples and everything that it took to tear down a 116-year-old building. Hell, everybody's using solar. They're not going to need all of that capacity, but it's too late. They're going to need a fourth of their capacity at some point because solar and other energy sources are absolutely on the forefront. People won't be using as much electricity. And if they do, they'll be creating their own. So the point I'm trying to make is if you don't go back and assess annually the project and what has changed majorly. So the mayor is proud of the fact that we're at 700,000 residents from 500,000. That's 200,000 more people. So a plan that was good 5 years ago did not take into consideration 200,000 more people in the city. And they're not all moving into the outer areas, the southeastern areas of the city. They're all congested into where it's already popular and everybody wants to be. So I'm just suggesting that these agencies really need to look annually at their design plans as they're progressing to implement them. When I was at the lottery, there was no way in 5 hells I could look at a plan we had 5 years ago and try to implement it as a game today when the technology and the people's choices of entertainment has changed so dramatically. You have to annually look at that stuff. So we're going to have to start, when we go to these budget meetings, we're going to have to start demanding annual reviews of projects, upcoming and pending projects within our communities, because the fact that the community demographics change so drastically makes what they're trying to do antiquated. That's like me using my old desktop. I have an old desktop computer and my printer died, and I couldn't find a printer that was adaptable to my old desktop. So the desktop is no good and the printer is no good because they're not compatible. And that's what's happening with these studies and plans that the city has put fortune in developing, but they're not updating and they're not tweaking to accommodate the residents.
And that's what when we're talking 16th Street, I mean, we're talking about commuters, and then we're talking post-COVID world. You know, is our focus going to be like I've been working on Connecticut Avenue stuff for over the past year, and people are waking up saying we're not going to have the same levels.
Right. I'm not going back into my office. The people are saying we can do this work remotely. We can save on office space rent. We can save on overhead all across the board by working remotely. It's effective now. There'll be like my daughter's job, they're 2 days a weekend, 3 days out. And the next month they're 3 days in and 2 days out. And they're happy with that, but there's not going to be the same need for that traffic.
So it's, yeah, and that made today's discussion all that much more disappointing.
But we do need a new chair, Tatiana, for our transportation committee. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
If you're interested, I'm sure that as far as I've heard, no one is fighting over the seat, and we're going to be left without a.
No one is fighting over it.
Nobody's fighting, and you can see why it is very difficult. You know, we also really struggle, and I do, and again, like just to throw some mad props at DDOT, because I know sometimes in these meetings we don't enough, but you know, we really struggled with language access, and so all of that engagement that.
In the time that they're saying, we reached out to the church, I'm like, what'd you guys do? Send like one letter in English?
But I will say the crosstown bus study I have noticed has been multilingual. They've done flyers in both languages. So I do want to shout out to DDOT about that, because it's been, you know, at one point when I was requesting Spanish translations, it was not a good response. But here we are, you know, a year later, and they're doing a, you know, at least for the crosstown study.
Because they hired a subcontractor to do the outreach work for them. It's much better. So.
Have their glory. I'm giving them glory. Okay. I want to give them mad props.
Before any more time passes, because I know we're going on 2 hours now, I did want to turn to the safety and mobility study recommendations. And Dieter and Jason, I don't know if you guys have tuned into the latest meeting. I logged into the last public overview, and I know in the agenda that I posted in the chat, there's a list of probably 10, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a list of about 10 projects that are in our ANC boundaries. And I don't know what, I don't know if commissioners have had a chance to look through those. But if we want to give any feedback, it's due by July 15th, which is conveniently the day after our ANC 1A meeting. So, Michael, I think a lot of them are up in you and Kent and Rashida's area. But if folks have feedback on the PD, I put the link to the PDF in there too, and I'll put it in the chat. I was
Just to clarify, are these all west of 14th?
the only one on
Opposite of me on 14th.
east of 14th.
East of-
They're all east of 14th except for the paint at the intersection of 14th and Meridian, and the paint at the intersection of, oh, that's 11th. So that's it.
Paint, just paint.
Paint and bollards.
Plastic flexi bollards. Yeah, did they separate them out, the two different sections, the first implementation right now and then the 3-year plan? Because there are 10 immediate one, okay. So yeah, please give feedback on them. I don't know if they put exact specifics on other locations yet. They did put specifics and pictures of all the immediate 10. But for the longer term ones, I don't know if they've actually told us exactly what they plan besides maybe more permanent things like curb extensions. That's what may take longer to do permanent changes. But the initial changes are quick fixes for high profile areas that are dangerous. And then hopefully those will turn into long-term projects once they're successful.
And
Well,
question, sorry, Kent, I know Kent and I have seen it. I'm not sure if Rashida has seen them yet. And we are reviewing them. I know the one at Park and Georgia, I've already tried to warn them that they've already made changes at that intersection that conflict with what they're now suggesting. So they'll have to figure that out.
I saw that and I was now is our chance to go on the record. Sorry, I realized the link that I put in the agenda seems to have broken over the course of 48 hours. So I will update that later, but the project website has all of the overview, and Jason, it has the plans all laid out so everyone can look at them in detail. So it sounds, Michael, it sounds like you're taking a first look, and I'll send it around to the entire commission again, just pointing out which ones are in our boundaries and saying if this is with you, then please pay attention and take a moment to review.
I just had a quick one. My street, the trees are so mature, they've just torn up the sidewalks. And I asked for DDOT to come out and take a look at it, and they did. And they did that quick fix with the asphalt tar over those areas. It looks horrible, but it's safe.
Did they use
they eliminated the tripping hazard, but that's just, you know, it has to be temporary because it's like block is hilly now, where they make the little up lumps.
Did they use
cover the roof?
The spongy asphalt rubberized material, or
I think that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that on a section of sidewalk by me too.
Right.
So
I complained about the streets being torn up in our entire ANC. That, you know, the trees are maturing, of course, and they're tearing up the sidewalks.
and
So if you have one, let your ANC commissioner know. You go over there.
did you was that just 301 request?
No, I did a 311 request, but I also talked to Moist, just the greatest smoke ever.
Yeah. It's been very helpful. Thank God.
Yeah, I talked to him and I got almost immediate. He and I talked also to Moore, Anthony Moore, his partner. That's Bob Moore's son, actually.
Wait,
Yeah, Anthony Moore is Bob Moore's son.
that's Bob Moore's kid?
Yeah.
I never wanted to make the connection, and now you found it. So
Is Anthony a moker or is he a?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Wow. I didn't realize.
And very effective. So he's on the west side of 16th Street.
Huh.
yeah, but
For anybody who, Bob Moore is the one that did the DCUSA, ran the National Capital, or not NCRC, but Columbia Heights, whatever the acronym is, it's late.
Yeah. I forget myself. Community Action Group, whatever. Yeah.
Gone through it's now Nikosi Bradley is now running it, I think.
Mhm.
Was. I don't know if he is.
Okay, well,
That's all I had for tonight.
Um,
I'm sorry how it turned out.
that was very disheartening, wasn't it? Took
Yeah.
the kind of air out there. Hey, we doing it in hand, no matter what the hell you say. I mean, thank you for letting us, do our dog and pony show. That's why I had to let them know. We're fully aware that they do great dog and pony shows, but that's all it is.
well, and it's disappointing too, because at this point we're all just frustrated because and so of course it's lashing, and I just felt like they were holding up their Wonder Woman bracelets and deflecting.
Well, and Christine, you put it very well. You got them to say they are prioritizing vehicular flow
over people.
Yep. So
it is. So we know our next steps. We know, and that I think that's really where the church is. So that's going to be my recommendation, and
I'll be right there with you.
Yeah, no, I know that they had
with my sword and shield.
Well, Dottie, God'll be there.
Yeah, I won't have to have my sword and shield. Do they know they're going up against God?
God, Mary, the Holy Ghost, they're all going to be showing up.
God on this. Oh, now I know my answer. I'm just going to go in there and start praying.
I grew up Catholic. I'm ducking. I don't mess around with it. No, I think that'll be our next step. It is, and again, I thought we proposed something that was incredibly reasonable. It was the plan. Originally. I don't whatever. It doesn't matter what we understand because.
So can you kind of help me understand the historic preservation's concern about the hanging lights? How that is more important than life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Live in the pretend like they're living in the 1800s. They could not have the drop down hanging lights, which
also didn't have cars.
Huh?
They also didn't have cars back then either.
I know. That's what I said. Get rid of the cars too, and just have the buses. I'm okay with that. And horse and buggies. I'm okay with that as well.
I was looking through my emails, and there were these historic preservation, the Section 160 reviews, and that was happening in 2017. And like Christine mentioned, there was 5 options going into it, and in between those historic meetings, they added option 6, which was getting rid of the left-hand turns, which is what caused this whole conundrum. And the last conversation we had, that they invited us after I reached out to them. It wasn't Spring reaching out proactively. She invited us to one meeting at the library in 2017. My next email was from me reaching out in January 2018 with her saying the historic meetings were still going on. And then there's me reaching out in July 2018 from the airport saying, hey, I was on Twitter and I saw that there's some 16th Street updates. What's going on? Are we invited? And then they had the public meeting in September, and that was it.
But they were having meetings.
And then we find out through emails that they were talking with DDOT in May 2018.
And they were talking with one D and one C.
No, only one D.
Just one D.
So, yeah.
We only got one email chain, which whether or not we were supposed to see it or not, who knows? But it was Sam Zimbabwe telling the commissioner in one day, after that commissioner gave a list of recommendations, including on Pine Street and Sacred Heart Way, what he thought they should do. Which Zach and I were never introduced. And then he was like, oh, but thank you for giving us our consolidated or giving us our bus stop back. I was like, and then Sam Zimbabwe said, oh, and by the way, keep this private.
Yeah.
And boy, they did a great job. I wish I were that good of a secret keeper.
Now, 1D only has 6 commissions? 5. And we're 12 and they're 5, but they carry more weight. I
Well, they were in
told you.
agreement.
Huh?
They were in agreement. That's the
Right, right. I mean,
you don't go looking for
Well,
trouble.
I think you guys don't get invited a lot because they know I'll show up. They don't want to have to deal with me. So you guys get left out because of me. I'm sorry.
Not your fault.
Wasn't
You
it
gotta take
last
the
year
bitter
at
with the
the
sweet.
oversight committee last year? Wasn't it Director Musha was mad at us because we're the only ones who showed up? Why is ANC1A here to
Yeah.
complain about me?
You brought a bold here.
Yeah, during the performance committee, like, why is ANC1A here all here complaining about us, about you? Well, because there are problems. So maybe they don't want to talk to us because I know we'll complain too much and actually call them out.
is that the
Yeah.
one where you brought the Balyard in?
Yeah,
The broken bollard, yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's been
And
great.
she was trying to separate us. I said, we're all together.
I love that they had to separate you guys, or at least tried, but
They tried, but it didn't work.
well, anyway, so yeah, so everybody knows our next step. I hope to see, I think really speaking to the need for the community to be that big final push. I'm hoping to let the church organize it. I do not have
Oh, they will.
I
They
can't.
will. We shouldn't. We shouldn't
No, and I
organize.
think I've tried, they will.
But we should encourage and assist and aid.
Well, Father Emilio, to quote him, he said, this is a community that is used to having their rights ignored and
Yes.
not being listened to, and they are upset and they are angry. And he said it would be nice if we didn't have to take this to the public and the media and let people know how angry they are.
Yeah, it would have been nice. But I think they really actually need, I think Muriel needs her eyes opened. That a great plan isn't a great action. Plans are just that.
And
And
we
they
can
should be
have the bus
fluid.
lane. We can have
Yeah,
the bus lane. This
yeah,
has
we're not saying don't give us,
bus
don't do the
lanes.
bus lane. We're saying accommodate the community, make concessions, go against the historic society.
But the other thing I just don't understand is
Amend that stupid rule.
cars
Okay,
have to cut across the bus lane anyway to get to Sacred Heart. So how is that not putting cars in the bus lane? Like, I don't know, whatever. Tatiana, I will tell you, I'm the daughter of an engineer, a civil engineer. So I leave it to you guys to explain that one to me.
Oh my goodness.
I know there's like a way, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Well, you all please take care.
Okay.
And I will talk to you soon. I guess we need to still settle commissioners. We still have to check back in with Commissioner Bass about if he still needs a special meeting for that ABRA license or not, but we'll see you then.
All right, great. Thanks everyone.
Are you
Thanks,
still in
Thank you.
DC, Zach?
Hi, Tatiana. Hi, Tim.
Yeah, I'm not, I will be here through the end of the month.
Okay.
Party.
It's Julia already made a Julia already made a to-do list of everything that we have to do and go see, and I'm just like, oh boy, it's gonna go long.
Well, after you've been married 59